What's up, everybody? Jill here. Welcome to Whispering Willow Farm. I am in my house today with my notepad, and I'm going to be answering a question that I get asked across all my platforms pretty frequently, and that was how I turned my hobby into a business. Now, I will tell you there is no one size fits all when it comes to this. There's so many different variables in one, just running a business, two, running a successful business, and then three, really the type of business you're trying to run makes a massive impact on how well it does. And so I'm just going to share with you guys kind of personal experience, which I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners would share with people, right? I've had a lot of mentors as I have been on this journey of growing my business for the last several years. And every person I talk to gives me a different piece of advice because it's all based off of their own personal experiences. And so while this may not be key word for word what you're walking through or what you're trying to achieve if you are trying to turn a hobby into a business, hopefully there's a couple tips or pieces of advice you can kind of grab and apply just like I have throughout the years. Like I said, not a one size fits all. One of the biggest things I'm going to tell you guys when it comes to turning a hobby into a business is figuring out your goals. You don't know how to run or really kind of achieve a profitable business if you're not sure what your goals are. And I can tell you, sometimes it gets hairy. And so for Nathan and I, we wrote out our core values. And as a matter of fact, I have them taped onto my wall in the dining room. And for me, anytime we are presented with an opportunity to grow our business, anytime we are presented with an opportunity to partner with someone, or maybe, a door opens or a door closes, we always kind of evaluate those core values. Does this align with X, Y, and Z? And if it does, then we'll pursue it. And if it doesn't, then we say no. And I will tell you probably my biggest piece of advice on the front end of this video is learn the value in saying no. I didn't do that early on, and it cost me. Truthfully, it cost me a lot. I thought I had to say yes to every opportunity because I was so eager and I wanted to just grow my business so badly, but I ended up saying yes to opportunities that did not align with my values, that took time away from my family, that ended up costing me time and money, and that just were not good fits. And so know that you have the freedom and the ability to say no, and sometimes it actually is really good to say no. And so I have learned that now that I don't have to say yes to everything that comes by. Another thing though is to really think about your demand, and obviously it's going to depend on what it is that you're trying to pursue as a hobby that you're wanting to scale to a business. But for me, this has shifted substantially over the last 6 or 7 years. When I first started my hobby of growing food, that was what I wanted to scale my business for. I wanted to grow food for a living, and I had a real rude awakening when I found out that I couldn't do that by myself. So my husband works outside of the farm. He had intended to continue to work outside of the farm. So I knew that the amount of debt I would have to go into to put up infrastructure and the loans I would need to take out to be able to have employees to grow at the scale I needed to meet that income I needed to was just not feasible for me and my family. And so I really kind of had to reshift. And so I think writing down your goals is essential. Something Nathan and I have spent a lot of time doing is just writing out what are the things I enjoy doing. What are the things that I could see myself showing up and doing every single day as a small business owner and not getting burnt out, being fulfilled, finding joy in it, finding purpose in it? Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. For us personally, I am not trying to run a business just for money. If I chase a dollar, I'm going to be chasing something all day long. I want to obviously be profitable because I am a business owner and I need that to make sense. But for me, I want to feel fulfillment out of it. I want it to bring me joy. I don't want it to take me away from my family. I want to do this with my family. And so those were a lot of my goals, is how do I incorporate my family into this? How do I not chase a dollar? How do I partner with other people? What does this look like collectively? Like, where are all the pieces of this really big puzzle that need to come together? And so then I started shifting. I started realizing I wasn't going to be selling produce anymore, which is what I did for a really, really long time. And I worked so hard and I didn't bring in hardly anything. And so then I was introduced to YouTube. I had a good friend of mine really just encouraging me, hey, you have all this knowledge in growing food, you're even selling, because at that point I was selling to farm to table restaurants. Why don't you take this hobby of yours and try to make money, try to scale it to a business through YouTube? And this is another thing I get asked all the time, is YouTube worth it? Can you actually make money off of YouTube? Obviously for my family, it's a large part of what we're doing. I'll be super transparent though, it is taxing. It's very, very taxing, and YouTube is one of those things, if you don't show up, you will immediately start seeing that decrease in revenue. And so I kind of have these ebb and flows. I have moments where it's like, I'm all in, I'm gonna do everything I can do, and then I have these moments where I experience burnout, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cut back some because I wanna be genuine and authentic, and I wanna make sure that I'm putting out the best version of me, and just putting out good education, being super genuine and authentic with what's going on in our lives. And so there is that ebb and flow, but I can tell you, if you do treat YouTube like a job, it will reward you like a job. And for me, it's just been such a joy having so many of you guys join our family and just educate and teach and inspire and encourage. And so for me, even though YouTube isn't the most profitable thing I do, it's something I always come back to because I find so much joy and fulfillment with just living life with you guys. So I really do appreciate you for that. But that was one way that I was really kind of able to kickstart my career. I knew early on I wanted to work towards influence, and I don't think that the number of followers or subscribers you have determines your influence, right? You can be influencing within your home, which is really important. You can be influencing your local community, your coworkers, your family and friends. Like, I really don't believe that number plays a large effect on that. But I knew I did want to reach a higher number and reach a larger audience. I just knew I had that calling. And I am kind of a like all in or nothing type of girl. So I knew I really want to grow this, and I really want to reach as many people as I can, and just encouraging them to grow food, love your family, love life, pursue joy and happiness. And so for me, I really felt like that was a calling, which is why I kind of just dug my heels in and was like, okay, I'm going to make this work. And here we are a couple years later, I'm still shooting YouTube videos, and I love sharing my life with you guys. Another way that I have turned a hobby into a business is by growing flowers. Again, this is when I talk about, scaling your business, knowing your demand, it really is crucial, because I could grow all of the vegetables in the world, but if I don't have a place to sell those vegetables, then really growing all this food is just in vain if that's my goal. And so I would encourage you all to find a market if you're wanting to grow vegetables or flour for profit. It can be done. I think having realistic expectations as far as volume. If you're wanting this to, replace a substantial amount of income, you are going to have a pretty large volume, and then you might realize that that's not something you can do on your own, and you might have to have employees, and then how much more do you have to sell to cover the cost of the employees? So having those cost analysis breakdowns are really, really important in my opinion. And so for me, I knew that growing food to sell wasn't going to meet my family's needs, but I do grow flowers, and I emphasize heavily on that in the spring and summer. And I'll be honest with you guys, it is not a massive revenue generator. However, when I think back to my goals and my vision, and our core pillars, community was number one. And there was a need in my community for locally sourced organic flowers. And so I saw the need and I filled the need. And so that is something I will continue to do, even if it doesn't bring in top dollar, because like I mentioned, I'm not chasing a dollar sign. I am chasing community and just togetherness with my community locally, my community with you guys. And I really think that sometimes you just have to do things that feel good and they feel right in your heart, and it may not always be the most profitable thing, and that is probably going to be different advice that you'll get from a lot of entrepreneurs, but for me, I do find a lot of value in that, and so that is going to be the advice I give you, what feels right to you. And you can afford to do some things that aren't the most profitable generating things if you have all these other generating things that you're doing. And so you might notice we have a lot of irons in the fire, which was kind of how we intended it and not really. But I knew I have so many different passions. So I knew it wasn't just going to be like, okay, here's your lane, stick in that lane. Because that's not who I am. I'm a very eclectic individual. I like all these different things. And so there's a lot of crossover. And so I knew it wasn't just like me going to be staying in this one thing, only teaching about this one thing, only doing this one thing. And so for us, it turned out really beautiful because I'm able to kind of have the flowers, and that meets my local community's needs. I've got growing vegetables, which is something that my family is reaping the benefit of, but then I'm able to turn it into educational content. And that's another way that we were really able to kind of start our business, was doing online courses. And so we've got, you know, vegetable courses, flour courses, we've got sourdough courses. We're working on continuing to do courses and digital content. I just recently wrote a book, which seems wild to me. And so that was a way that really kind of fulfilled me when I knew I wasn't going to be able to grow vegetables to sell. I had this moment of just massive discouragement, right? Where I was just like, man, this is what I feel like I'm called to. Why isn't this working out? And I just had to spend a lot of time soul searching and realize there's more than one way to do this. And now when I would have a small impact on my local community, I'm able to have a massive impact on this online community, which is just super, super rewarding. So that was certainly something that I focused the last 2 years on, is just building my online following, making sure I stayed consistent, posting YouTube videos. We send out weekly newsletter. I have grown my team over the last 6 months to a year, and that has been super exciting. But one thing for us that is was kind of an unexpected growth to our business, but a very welcome shift, is we started an online storefront. And originally it was this idea to partner with other local crafters or artisans made in the USA and just highlight these other small businesses. And it's so funny, I get asked this all the time, Jill, when did you scale? Like, when did this happen? And I always tell people it was such an unintentional scale. Like, Nathan and I looked at each other one day and we're like, how did we get here? Like, this was not a strategic thing. This was Nathan and I having these late night conversations in our bed like we usually do, and just dreaming together. And it was like, man, being a small business owner is hard. And Nathan and I have not went into debt to be a small business owner. We don't have any small business loans. So anytime we need to buy inventory or anything like that for our online store, I literally just have to work harder to be able to cover the cost of that. And we find a lot of value in that. Now, if you are a small business owner, or you're thinking about being a small business owner and you've got loans and stuff like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Nathan and I just worked diligently for several years to get out of debt. And that was one of those values, is like, hey, I don't want to go into debt to do this. How do we do this? So we were laying in bed one night dreaming, and I was like, we've got to support other small, business owners who are feeling like we are, like, oh my gosh, is there a way to do this without getting loans? Like, how do you have all this inventory? How do you buy all these printers and have, shipping and all of this stuff? There's a whole nother level there that you have to think about. And Nathan and I were just like, let's just start partnering with these people. And it's highlighting what they're doing, and it's also building and growing our business. And so we started really humble in that. And we were just partnering with local artisans, making stickers for our shop. We'd have t-shirts, and we worked locally with a company a couple hours from us. And then, like I said, I'm very eclectic. And so many people were asking, well, where do you get this? And what kind of coffee do you drink? And, oh, I love all your pottery. And then they started asking about all these different avenues and aspects of our lives, which then led into, well, how do I find a local potter that can make mugs for us? How do I partner with a local coffee shop to roast us our own coffee? How do I work with the local, woodsmith to make sourdough spatulas and sourdough tools? And then it turned into this really cool thing where we started being super intentional on finding handcrafted, handmade, made in the USA products and highlighting all these other small businesses. And that was something that Nathan and I felt really, really good about. About 90% of all the products on our website are made in the USA. We've got African woven baskets, which are fair trade, but they do come from Africa. That's something that's obviously not made in the US, but we still can feel really good about that partnership. And so it felt really cool. And that was something that we started to really see an increase in our business on just being able to like intertwine the things that we're using every single day, again, being very authentic and genuine, and just finding someone local to us that can make those things to then offer to our audience. And that has proved to be a really good endeavor. It is very time sensitive. Nathan and I ship out all of our own products, so there are a lot of things to think about. And so for us, it was figuring out what our strengths and weaknesses are. Were we going to spend that time shipping out product? Did I have the time to ship out product? Did I have the revenue coming in to cover the inventory to buy the products? That's the tricky part. And so we've been, pretty strategic about that now. We're kind of doing these seasonal launches where I can just partner with a few local people every few months and then release new things on our website and highlight them. And it's just been this great partnership. And so for us, that was a way that I was really able to kind of scale my business, which allowed me to tamper off having to hustle flowers so hard or having to hustle selling vegetables. And then we completely phased out of selling vegetables altogether, which felt really good because we were doing what suited our family's needs the best. We were meeting a need through our online community, through our local community with the flowers. And really, that is how we turn this hobby into a business for ourselves. So if I could give you 3 tips for turning your hobby into a business, I would tell you, 1, to set realistic goals for yourself. And for me, if you've been following me for any period of time, I find major just value in writing things down. There is something about taking pen to paper that will hold you accountable in a different way. And so I encourage you, get your pen, get your notepad, and write out your goals. I want to sell vegetables. And that doesn't have to look like wholesale. You could do CSAs if you have a need. You could do the farmer's market, which is super profitable. Just because that wasn't feasible for me and my family, we didn't want to do the farmer's market, doesn't mean that you can't make that hobby into a business. So again, like I said, I'm sharing my personal experience, and you guys are going to just have to pick the good stuff out of here that is applicable to you. But set realistic goals. And really, like I mentioned, what I did is just anything I could think of that brought me joy and that I would want, I wrote down on paper. And that was, being in touch with my community. That was reaching a lot of people. That was spending quality time with my family. That was educating on the importance of growing food. That was highlighting other small businesses. I put all of these things in there, and then I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But you don't know what it is that you're trying to achieve until you write the goal down first. And I will also encourage you guys, don't be shy when it comes to this. Write your dreams out boldly and stand firm in faith that you will see it come to pass. I also think that is really important. So when I wrote out all the things I would possibly want to pursue or the things that brought me joy, it was a long list. It was a very long list, slightly overwhelming to Nathan, but I'm a big dreamer, and I do believe that there is value in that and holding yourself accountable of hey, I am worth pursuing these dreams for. My children are worth me pursuing my dreams to one day pass on to them, and just encourage them to pursue their own dreams. Not that they want to take over my business. They probably don't. But hey, you know what? Mom dreamed really hard and worked really hard and was able to see this come to pass. I can do that too. So I'm going to encourage you guys to do that as well. The second piece of advice would be give yourself grace. Starting a business of any niche is challenging. It has moments where you want to throw in the towel and say you're done. It has moments where you are on the rooftop screaming gratitude and thankfulness. And so that is something I've had to learn. You're going to have good months and you're going to have bad months, and be diligent with where your money's coming in from, and making sure that you're being reserved in certain areas for if you do have a bad month. And just for me, me, I kind of had this mentality of, if I didn't do well a certain month, what am I doing wrong? Am I not performing as well as I should be? Am I not doing X, Y, or Z? And really, it doesn't have anything to do with that. If you're showing up and you're working, sometimes you just don't have good months, and that's okay. And so I have learned giving yourself grace as a business owner, and as you're just navigating turning a hobby into a business, is going to be really crucial for your mental just state. It allowed me to have a better mentality. I'm like, hey, Jill, it's okay. You did everything you could do, and you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to try again, and it's going to be okay. And my third piece of advice would be keep pushing. If someone tells you no or a door closes, that doesn't mean it is, the end of your adventure trying to become a business owner. There'll be another door open, and there'll be someone that said yes. I remember vividly, when I had started out trying to build my influence online, and I would go to all these different businesses asking to partner, like, hey, can I be a brand ambassador for you? Or, hey, I'd love to work with you. I cannot tell you the amount of people who said, no, you're not big enough. You're not what we're looking for. I don't like what you have to offer. And it was constant. And I could have taken that and been totally defeated and said, you know what? I'm not worth it. This isn't worth it. But I knew that that was not the truth. I knew that what I was trying to pursue was worth it, that my dreams were worth pursuing, that I know that your dreams are worth pursuing. And so I kept knocking on that door until finally someone let me in. And now, years down the road, I am partnering with people who I would have never in a million years dreamed of partnering with. And that fulfillment feels good because I kept pushing. I kept showing up. I kept putting in the work required. It's with anything, right? You're not going to wake up one day and be successful. You're not going to wake up one day and just be healthy. You're not going to wake up one day and just like have all this knowledge. You have to continuously pursue and work towards that thing. And then one day you're going to have, really kind of crafted yourself to become knowledgeable in whatever it is you're teaching, or become disciplined in working to achieve this goal. And so if you keep pushing, I can promise you it will pay off, especially if you're wanting to, turn your hobby and educate through YouTube. That is one of those. Consistency is key. And so if I can keep showing up every day, I always get rewarded with that. And when I can't and I lack the discipline, it always shows. So keep pursuing your dreams, you guys. And it doesn't have to look like this massive thing, right? You can have a small shop just like I do and be making a mighty impact. You can be influencing so many different people. You cannot even be thinking about any sort of social influence at all and still run a very successful business, hosting on-farm workshops, selling flowers or produce locally, or educating on a local scale. There's so many things you can do. Don't be limited really by anything. Just figure out your strengths, work on your weaknesses, know your market, know your customer, and ultimately pursue what brings you joy, and I promise you that will always be worth it. But I hope this was helpful, just kind of sharing my experiences on the things I did to turn my hobby into a business. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon.